tonight it's Cult TV night with Kim Newman, and tonight, The Avengers. For the uninitiated, what The Avengers was in a sentence?
It was the definitive cult British detective comedy, mildly risque science fiction spy horror show of the early to mid-60s.
Right, okay, and here's the distinctive theme tune to put us in the mood. Great tune. You're listening to Radio 2. The Laurie Johnson Orchestra, who we play regularly on this programme. So tell us about The Avengers, Kim.
Well, oddly enough, it was one of those shows that wasn't created, but so much as mutated.
Yeah.
It started out as a show called Police Surgeon, which was actually a realistic crime drama starring Ian Hendry as a police surgeon.
A good title then, wasn't it, really?
And he solved...
daft if it was like cavity wall insulating specialist, wouldn't it?
But he solves boring cases, the kind of cases that Dixon and Doc Green found pretty easy to solve as well.
Right.
And they introduced a character on that was played by Patrick Macnee, who was the mysterious bowler-hatted British secret agent who enabled the Ian Hendry character to do more interesting things. And they changed the title to The Avengers, and in fact changed Ian Hendry's character and messed it around a bit. And so the first sort of season of The Avengers proper had John Steed, the Patrick Macnee character, partnered with a bloke. And it was interesting, but it didn't quite work. There was something missing, so they dumped Ian Hendry, who was pretty bald, and came back intermittently as bad guys for the rest of the run, and brought in Honor Blackman to play Kathy Gale, who was a sort of leather-clad kung fu type person, well before the craze for heroines of that stripe. And surprisingly, the series became much more popular then.
Funny that.
Yeah, there was something deep in 1960s psyche that loved the sight of women in leather beating up on 5 bad guys at one time.
Right. And I mean, John Steed, of course, the Patrick Macnee thing, is the consummate Englishman, really, isn't it? In fact, when we were in Boston watching David Bowie, the taxi driver said that we all talk just like the Avengers. I think she was probably referring more to Liz than me and the boy Lark, because she talks like that, has a proper sapper and things like that.
Yeah, well, she does talk a little like Diana Rigg, who took over from Honor Blackman in the role of Emma Peel. I think everybody seems to feel that Diana Rigg was the Avengers heroine.
Yeah.
Everyone has a certain fondness for poor daft old Joanna Lumley when she took over in the 70s with that bloody stupid haircut. And I always found Linda Thorson kind of appealing in a sort of sub-amateur, pathetic kind of way. But certainly it was the era of the show with Diana Rigg, which is the one you remember, because the level of banter between the two leads sort of was raised, and it was one of the first shows that prompted people to speculate on what exactly was the relationship between this married woman with a notably absent husband and this super suave Mr. Charming swinging bachelor sort of person. But they left all that to the scenes between the episodes, so you never really found out whether they were involved with each other or not.
Never, not right?
No, not really. No,
right.
It's still a mystery to this date.
And what was special about it then, do you think? Because, I mean, there were lots of series like there was like The Persuaders and all these kind of things, weren't there?
What was special was that it was strange. And again, it's something that evolved. It was originally an ordinary cop show, and then it started doing crazier and crazier things. Particularly in the 2 seasons with Diana Rigg, it got into areas of the surreal and the bizarre. They had like killer plants from outer space, and sort of semi-psychedelic sequences. And they also, I think, got really heavily into the kind of fetishism you don't see on television anymore. There was a particularly strong episode called A Touch of Brimstone, in which Diana Rigg wandered around with a black corset and a spiked collar and a whip and thigh boots. And that was something that certainly seemed to incite a great many fathers to watch the show along with their children.
Right. I mean, was John Steed a sort of successful male sex symbol to balance this, do you think?
Funnily, I'm, of course, not particularly qualified to mention this, but my mother recently mentioned the fact that she, at the time, found Patrick Macnee enormously appealing as a kind of suave, distinguished, older, sophisticated figure. And my mother now says it's a shock watching the show to see how young he actually was at the time. But
do they stand up? Are they watchable now? I mean, have they stood the test of time?
They've been coming out a lot on video, so they're playing again on TV now. I think the thing that there are sort of repetitions from week to week. When you watch a batch, that you notice quite a lot of episodes have really interesting, bizarre, strange setups and really disappointing explanations at the end, which then degenerate into fight scenes. And although there's some good action, and particularly Honor Blackman and Diana Rigg are very good at throwing people around, Patrick Macnee obviously wasn't. So what happens is someone who looks absolutely nothing like Patrick Macnee clamps a bowler hat over his head and beats up the stunt man. In fact, on tonight's episode, I understand it was Stephen Burkoff played the villain's sidekick and got beaten up by whoever it was, doubling for Patrick Macnee. And you do notice that as soon as there's any action involved whatsoever, Patrick Macnee goes and has a cup of coffee and watches while his stuntman takes over.
So it's edited together at Dewhurst, was it?
Yes.
Like a couple of backflips, and then he cuts to him dusting himself down and filling his umbrella.
And smiling a lot, But Diana Rigg seems to have done most of her own action. She had a particularly canny move which involved brushing her hair out of her eyes just before she hit anybody.
Right, okay, so that was always the telltale sign to watch out for. All right, Kim Newman on the Avengers. BBC research the other day, Kim Newman, I don't know whether you'd be interested to know this, says that 5% of the audience of this programme is aged 65 or over. I don't know whether you find this surprising, but...
Isn't that a bit of a downer for your cutting-edge youth programme? I mean, don't you want to stop them listening?
Well, it's only 5%, for goodness sake. I mean, the other 95% are thrusting young bucks and all those kind of people.
No, they're too busy. You'd have to be a kind of, a sado insomniac with nothing else to do to listen, wouldn't you?
Has been said.
Well.
Anyway, Kim Newman is here with us tonight, probably for the last time, to talk about cult television. It's the Avengers tonight, but also which transmutated into the new Avengers.
Yeah, it didn't work though, did it? It was... its time had gone. Bringing it back in the 70s was not a good idea. Right. Individual episodes are quite interesting. Joanna Lumley, who was not then the national institution she has now become, is actually quite amusing and charming in it sometimes.
Purdy.
Yes, that's right.
Everybody was having a Purdy haircut. I mean, mine looked great.
Mine was terrible. Yeah. But of course, there was the one big problem with the new Avengers. And I think as soon as you see anybody wave their hand in that coffee bean clutching motion, you know who I mean. Yep. Gareth Hunt.
At least we hope it's the coffee bean. Yeah.
Well, yes. No, I think that was also appropriate to his performance as well.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Yeah, he was brought in because Patrick Macnee was just a bit too old to handle all the leaping around and jumping in and out of cars stuff. And he could just about do that. But when it came to tossing off a witty line of dialogue, he omitted the "a witty line of dialogue" from that sentence.
Right. Okay. There is talk of a further remake.
Yeah. Well, there's been this dreaded possibility of Mel Gibson is John Steed. The thing is, there's this Hollywood mentality that there is no classic television show which would not be better with Mel Gibson in the lead. We saw his abortion of Maverick last year. I'm sure, he's got his sights set on him and Sly in Steptoe and Son. I can see. I think again, Hollywood, if you're listening, the only piece of casting,
as we've already established, they aren't, unless they're over 65.
Yeah, the only piece of casting that's been suggested in this vein that would be worse was the idea of casting Arnold Schwarzenegger as Sergeant Rock, which was also strongly suggested last year. I'll put it bluntly. An Austrian cannot play Sergeant Rock. Right. And also an Australian cannot play John Steed. End of commercial.
True. Absolutely. All right.
Will they listen?
Well,
I doubt it.
Well, they might.